CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 2, Part 22, Audio by Renee Matthew. We saw the emergence of the Ghaznavid Sultanate, which was established by Alp Taghin in 961, and that was consolidated by Mahmud of Ghazni. This is Mahmud of Ghazni. And we saw two dynasties were emerging, which were the Buyids, and the other one was the Sultanate, the Ghaznavid Sultanate. The Buyids were there on one side, and the Ghaznavids were also skilled in military dynasty with a professional army. All these people were able to come up higher in the administration position because of their high-skilled ridership quality and warrior quality. Okay, so Fatimids were there on one side, one dynasty, and the other dynasty was the Buyids. So Ghaznavids were very powerful. They belonged to the Turks and Indians. One of the generals of Mahmud was an Indian named Tilak. Okay, so they belonged to Indian group and also Turks. They had some connection there. So, the center of power was in Khorasan and Afghanistan. And for them, the Abbasid caliphs were not rivals but a source of legitimacy. They were not against the Abbasid caliphs. And that is why they did not do away with the caliphate style of rule. So they always took the Abbasid people as a part of their legitimacy. They gave them some power. Remember that. The Buyids, okay? And Ghaznavids were also skilled in military operations. Now Mahmud, the new ruler, was very conscious of being the son of a slave, and we saw that the Turkish people came from the slavery origins. They had their origins with slavery and was very eager to receive the title of Sultan from the Caliph. He got the title of Sultan from the Caliph, and the Caliph was willing to support the Sunni Ghaznavid as a counterweight to Shiite power. So I told you that the Caliphate dynasty, the Caliphate movement was still kept by the dynasty. That is the Ghaznavid dynasty. They did not do away with it. Now Mahmud was very sure that he will not be accepted for long because he was the son of a slave and he did not have any inheritance from a father who was a king. But he received the title of Sultan from the Caliph. So Caliph was still powerful. But the Caliph supported the Sunni Ghaznavid against the Shiite. So that was another problem now. So this is the title of Sultan. This is Sunni Ghaznavid. And what about the Seljuk Turks? That was a different group which entered Turan as soldiers in the armies of the Samanids and Karakhanids. Okay, so with the armies of Samanids and Karakhanids, they entered a place called Turan, the Seljuk Turks. And they were non-Muslim Turks from further east. They were not Muslim at all. Okay, they were non-Muslims, but they entered this territory. And they also established themselves as a very powerful group under the leadership of two brothers, Tugril and Chagri Beg. The Seljuk Turks established themselves under two brothers, Tugril and Chagri Beg. Okay, so many dynasties were springing up from here and there. That is what you have to take note of. And some of the names are not familiar, but still you have to write and study and get a grip on it. Okay, so first was the Ghaznavid people, then came the Seljuk Turks, and Seljuk Turks had two brothers. Under them they established. Now, taking advantage of the chaos, a lot of internal strife was there, a lot of confusion was there, and by this time our Mahmud of Ghazni had died. The Seljuks conquered Khorasan. Khorasan was the capital, and the Seljuk Turks, they conquered Khorasan in 1037 and made Nishapur their first capital. So you can see that the capitals changed from one to another. Okay, so now there was a change again. And Nishapur was the first capital now. And they conquered Khorasan and made Nishapur as the first capital. Now Seljuks next turned their attention. So after this particular place, after conquering the capital, after making Nishapur the capital, they turned their attention to Western Persia and Iraq. Now these two places were ruled by whom? By the Buyids. Okay, so they were against the Buyids, and Buyids were always supporting whom? The Buyids were supporting the Caliphate movement, and they did not do away with it, remember that. Okay, they were totally different from the Abbasid dynasty. So now these two places were ruled by the Buyids, and Buyids were totally different from the Abbasid people, and they supported whom? They supported the Caliphate movement. And in 1055, they restored Baghdad to Sunni rule. So they gave Baghdad back to Sunni rule, and Sunni Ghaznavid was mostly appreciated and acknowledged by the Caliph. Do you remember? Not the Shiite. The Caliph al-Qaim conferred on Tughril Beg the title of Sultan. Tughril, who is Tughril? One of the brothers. He gave the title of Sultan to Tughril. After whom? After Mahmud. Mahmud died, and now the Sunnis were coming out. So he gave this particular title to Tughril Beg in a move that marked the separation of religious and political authority. So there was a separation between the religious and political authority, and that is why these kind of changes took place. Now look at the way they fought. Though they were of slavery origin, they had a lot of equipments and chivalry, and they had all the qualities of a knight. Now what about the two Seljuk brothers? They ruled in accordance with the tribal notion of rule by the family as a whole. So they were very particular about ruling as a family. First, because they were brothers, and they were also people who respected the tribal ideology and culture, because they were tribals. Okay. Now Tughril, one of the brothers who got the Sultanate title, was succeeded by his nephew Alp Arslan. Alp Arslan was the next person. So during Alp Arslan's reign, the Seljuk Empire expanded to Anatolia. So he was a very clever and shrewd ruler, the nephew, more clever and more strategy planner than the two brothers, and he expanded his empire to Anatolia. So from the 11th to the 13th centuries, there were a lot of conflicts which took place between the European Christians and the Arab states. They were still not in accordance, they were not in unity, they were not in good terms also. So a lot of conflicts took place between European Christians and Arab states. And this is actually going to be discussed below, and we are going to see what happened between these two people. A great rivalry emerged between the Christians and the Muslims. So what is happening there? Okay, so this is the nephew Alp Arslan. He was a person who ruled after the two brothers. And at the start of the 13th century, when there were a lot of confusions between the Christians and the Arabs, the Muslim world found itself on the verge of a great disaster. So now there was a great shaking which took place in the Muslim world. This was a threat from the Mongols. Mongols were very powerful. They were the last but most decisive of all nomadic assaults on settled civilizations. So they were very good in nomadic assaults and attack, and they were skilled in all these kind of things, especially on settled people. So Mongols attacked, and that is something which threatened them badly. The Crusades come into being because there was a lot of confusion between the Christians and the Muslims. So in the medieval Islamic societies, you should remember that the world has reached the medieval period. Christians were regarded as the people of the book, and the name given to the Christians were Al-Kitab. Al-Kitab. Because they had their own scripture, which is the New Testament, or Injil. You should know that the Bible was divided into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The great flood, the story of the flood is given in the Old Testament, and the coming of Jesus is mentioned in the New Testament. So because they went by their scripture, they were known as the people of the book, Al-Kitab, and New Testament, the term for that is Injil. Now Christians were granted safe conduct, okay, Aman, they were given safe conduct while venturing into Muslim states as merchants, pilgrims, ambassadors and travelers. So all people from all these professions entered the Muslim place, and they were given some autonomy, and they were encouraged also to an extent, though they were under the rule of the Muslims. Now these territories where they traded also was held by the Byzantine Empire once upon a time. It was held by the Byzantines, notably the Holy Land of Palestine. So that was under the Byzantine Empire, but they emerged as the merchants, pilgrims, ambassadors, and travelers. Now comes the great place, Jerusalem. It was conquered by the Arabs in 638, but it was a very important place even now for the Christian imagination, because it is a place where Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection took place. So, very much important to the Christians and also to the Bible, the scriptures. It was a very important factor in the formation of the image of Muslims in Christian Europe, because they annexed it. They got it to their possession. Even now there are a lot of conflicts going over the hold of Jerusalem. Okay, so it started from then, from the Crusades. So look at this magnificent Jerusalem town, which is so popular and very rich in its culture and ideology. So everything started from 638. And still the revolt is going on between these people, especially on the Holy Land of Palestine. There is no peace with the civilians there even now. Hostility towards the Muslim world became more pronounced. It was more predominant in the 11th century. Okay, they entered, and as you go in the olden times of the world history, it goes from 13th to 11th century. Alright, so there was a lot of problems with the Muslim world. The Christians were not at all happy. And why was that? The factors are given here. 4 factors are actually given here. Take a look at it. First is the annexing of the Normans, Hungarians, and some slaves. All these people were converted to Christianity. And the Muslims remained as the main enemy, because all these people got converted to Christianity. There was a lot of change in the social and economic organization of the Western Europe, especially in the 11th century. Lot of change was there, and that contributed to the hostility between the Christendom and the Islamic world. Because when these people got converted, there were a lot of changes in the social and economic organization, and gradually what happened? There was a lot of enmity between the Christendom and the Islamic world.